It is Tuesday, June 21st, the feast of St. Aloysius Gonzaga, and the summer solstice. Today's reading is from the Gospel of Matthew, and it begins this way. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not give what is holy to dogs, or throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn and tear you to pieces." Wow. I am walking into Corhaven Cemetery. This was a long neglected cemetery for enslaved African Americans on a plantation in Virginia. And some years ago, the owners of this property turned this place into a place of retreat and reflection called Corhaven. I'll read you the plaque. The Corhaven Graveyard. The names of the unknown souls buried here were not recorded, yet we know the names of some enslaved persons who once labored long on this plantation. Some may lie here. We recognize their dignity. We honor their memory. Tom, James, John, Reuben, Old Jack, Toby, George, Sam, Old Nan, Mary, Sal, Ann, Nan and her child, Doll, Sue, Jenny, Winnie, and others. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. As I walked through these woods and honored these souls who were left unhonored during their lifetime, I could almost hear the dogs that would be sent out in search of escaped people who were escaping slavery. The dogs. Do not give what is holy to the dogs. Just show you one of the tombs. Though it's Tuesday for you all, it is Monday for me, and I spent the day here helping to mulch and weed and plant to make this place, or to recognize that this is hallowed ground. So I'm going to sit on this bench for a minute and talk to you about today's readings. Jesus goes on to say, "Do unto others whatever you would have them do to you." Let's see that. Let's try that again. "Do to others whatever you would have them do to you." This is the law and the prophets. And we do wonder how Christians could have enslaved other human beings and treated these holy pearls so horribly, literally throwing them to the dogs, tearing them to pieces, trampling them underfoot. We wonder, especially when that next line, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." Well, my son and I were listening to that reading today, and he suggests that Jesus was saying something, implying something that isn't written there. Whatever you would do, whatever you would have them do to you, if you were them. Not just if they were you, but if you were them. And that is a stance that calls for some pretty radical empathy. A kind of empathy that could be almost impossible for us without God's grace. That kind of radical empathy in which we walk in each other's shoes, listen to each other's stories, not as other, but as if it were you, as if it were me, because it's that kind of oneness that Jesus came to bring us. You know, Paul says the mark of being one body, of being Christ's body, is that we rejoice with those who rejoice and we weep with those who weep. So today on this Juneteenth celebration, it was a time of lament and also a time of celebration. This next part of our reading today, "Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road broad that leads to destruction, and those who enter through it are many. How narrow the gate and constricted the road that leads to life, and those who find it are few. I think about this gate. I'm walked through a gate here. And I think about how Jesus says in the Gospel of John, I am the door. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Like, that kind of radical empathy is possible as we are one body in Christ. Think about the narrow gate and how we can only get through it if we're not carrying a whole lot. So I wonder, what do I need to give up? What do I need to give up? What way of seeing things? What worldview? What narrow worldview? What about my ego must I give up to walk that path of radical empathy with others, to love people as if it were you, to love others? That way is the way that Jesus loved us, by becoming one of us. So St. Aloysius was a zealous young man. It's his feast day today. I was reading about how he would both amaze and irritate his fellow Jesuit brothers, because every time he would walk up the steps, he would say, at every landing, he would say a Hail Mary. So it took him a long time to go up and down steps. And then he left his studies to serve people dying in the plague, and then he became one of them. He also died of the plague. So in honor of this patron saint of students, I'm going to conclude these words today with the zealous hope and desires that all be one, expressed by my students at Don Bosco Cristo Rey when they were asked some suggestions for how the church can be a leading voice against racism. And here are just a few of the things they said. He said, the church should start its own campaigns against racism. The church should admit and accept its mistakes. The church should publicly condemn racism. The church can keep saying racism is a sin. Church can soften the hearts of people and show them how to love one another like Jesus taught us. The church can stop generalizing all things white. God and Jesus shouldn't be white in every picture in church. Church should welcome all people. And finally, I love this one. Open the doors to everyone. Open the doors. Lots to think about from these young people, these children of God, in the tradition of St. Aloysius Gonzaga, on this day after Juneteenth, on the summer solstice.